Good morning, everybody. It is that wonderful pre-described time of 9 o'clock, or 9:01, as the mayor has told me, that it's a time for the regular meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Washington County, Nevada to start. Welcome on this beautiful Friday morning. It is August 16th, and with that, I will get a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Smith. Mayor Smith.
Still not on?
Not working.
I don't think this.
Here.
There you go.
Von Hartung.
Here?
Neoma Jordan. Here. Bob Lucy.
Here.
Lee Gibson.
Here.
Dale Ferguson.
Here.
Christina Swallow. Here. Oscar Delgado is not in attendance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're having some technical difficulties, obviously, this morning with our operator error. There's a lot of reasons it's probably not working on this Friday morning. Anyways, welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. At this time, oh, look at it. Councilman, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? Yeah, I'm looking at you. You know who I'm talking to.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have to hold recognition of
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you this morning. We are going to our first point in this our agenda this morning, and it is a special recognition by the RTC of the RTC by Reno Food Systems for support and partnership to provide community transit service to the Reno Garlic Fest. Mr. Michael Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman and members of the Commission. Michael Moreno, RTC Public Affairs Manager for the record. We recently participated, supported, and partnered with Reno Food Systems for the Reno Garlic Fest. With us here today is Rebecca May Stetson, representing the organization to express her appreciation on behalf of their organization for providing transit to the Reno Garlic Fest. Rebecca?
Thank you, Rebecca Stetson, for the record. Yeah, Reno Food Systems is a great local nonprofit that does a lot of different food events, but Reno Garlic Fest this year was our third year, and we've grown to, we had 4,000 participants this year. And so to continue holding it in Pat Baker Park, it was vital that we had a partnership with RTC to use that park and ride program so that we were able to do parking over at the Livestock Event Center and then get folks over to the park because there's, like I said, really limited parking there in the neighborhood. We had about 200 people ride the bus, and as with any first time, there was a few logistical things to take care of. And although this is not my first time working with Michael Moreno, every time I get to work with him in RTC, it is amazing. So, I mean, I had him on the cell phone that afternoon, and then my colleague Jolene Cook to coordinate things. And just want to really express that I appreciate you guys supporting us in this and how much value I find working with RTC. And I've had a chance to work with a few people there, but Michael has been a real rock star in my life, making things flow really easily. So thank you guys for supporting that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope you have a successful event at the Reno Garlic Fest. And so.
Yeah, it was great. We're going to move to a bigger location for next year because it's not necessarily large enough to hold, you know, as it's growing. But yeah, I appreciate the partnership, and Truckee Meadows Earth Day is another big one for us, and so we'll look forward to that next year.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are on to item 1, approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
You have an agenda.
All right. We are on to item 2.1, public input. I have some individuals signed in at this time. If you would like to speak under public comment, you can sign in with the clerk. First up, I have Amy DeWitt Smith. Good morning, Amy.
Hi, just really quick, I have these little flyers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rebecca's a little shorter than I am. So my name is Amy DeWitt Smith, and I'm the Executive Director of the Neighbor Network of Northern Nevada. We go by N4 for short, and we're a startup nonprofit. We're just over 4 years old now, and we have a pretty awesome project that we're working on. Aside from our 5310 project, we do have one of those, but that's not why I'm here today. We've been working on an inclusive transportation planning project since July of 2018. It's funded by the Administration for Community Living and administered by the Community Transportation Association of America. And it's a project where we engage people with disabilities, older adults, and their care partners, as well as other stakeholders working in transit and human service organizations to come to the table and talk about ways that we can fill transportation gaps in the community, as well as what some of the priorities and preferences are of community members. So our round one was really kind of doing just a lot of different outreach. We did partner with RTC on a couple of convenings and shared our survey data, did some one-to-one interviews and focus groups. And through that, we're able to kind of parse out some different themes and what was important to community members. And so now we're in a round two, a second phase. And so I've passed out just a quick kind of info sheet that goes over the project. But the five priority areas that we're currently working on from now through December are: one, to start a statewide transportation association. We're one of the few states to not have one yet. So really kind of starting that statewide effort, and we've had quite a few stakeholders in support to do that. And then number two is updating the information highway. So we get a lot of feedback that people just don't know what transportation services and programs are out there, so coming up with a really effective way to improve Nevada's no wrong door system and get all that information in there so people can access it. Sensitivity training, a lot of the people we spoke with love the drivers, but there are some other people working in various transportation programs who maybe could sharpen their sensitivity skills. And then a peer-to-peer travel support program where a person with a disability or an older adult could actually be the person teaching community members how to access not only and utilize not only using the bus, but various transportation programs in the community, such as taking Lyft and some other things. And the reason I'm here and the primary part I wanted to talk about was the Ride With Me Day. We're hoping to propose that we can get together with elected officials, RTC board members such as yourself, and different people who have a decision-making role in transportation to meet a person in the community and take a ride with them. And we could do that in a variety of ways, and I'm open to kind of talking about what that might look like. Oh, is that my timer? So that's why I'm here, is just to propose that Ride With Me Day. I did pass out one copy of our round one, and our information's on there if
Great.
anybody wants to contact us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next I have Jocelyn Seaman.
Right here.
Good morning. If it's all right with you, can Twyla, who's also signed up, testify after? I'm sorry, make comment.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. My name's Jocelyn Seaman. I'm also with the Neighbor Network of Northern Nevada. Our upcoming Ride With Me event, as Amy mentioned, is designed to pair a public official with an older adult or person with disability, and allowing them to use public transportation together in the way that the older adult or person with disability normally does. And we hope this will sort of foster communication between our members and officials so that we can work together to improve the accessibility of existing systems. So today I have one of our most active, if not the most active, N4 member who will be participating in Ride With Me, and she'd like to talk about it.
I'm in support of the Ride With Me Day event because I feel like other people need to know what it's like for people to ride and use Lyft. And I also want to show people how to use Lyft as transportation so that other people out there know how to use Lyft for transportation.
Great. Thank you, Twyla. Thank you, Jocelyn. We appreciate you coming up and sharing with us this morning. All right, next I have Ryan Kinney. Good morning, Mr. Kinney.
Thank you. A couple of things. One, Mr. Mayor Smith was very appreciative of the fact that and helping to hopefully get some type of signal around Pyramid and Holman, so that way you guys don't get hit with a negligence lawsuit. Just any type of signal, you and NDOT, because that's on the NDOT freeway. That's Pyramid's on the NDOT freeway. Second, you have a couple of agenda items to approve this morning. One of them is for approving more paratransit buses, and it's sorely needed. Because for the past 30 to 60 days, at least once a week, I'm at least more than 5 minutes past the 15-minute late window. And it's because of the fact that the RTC access schedulers are making it so hard on their drivers to get around and to pick people up on time. I experienced this morning, I had to be here by 8:30, I had to get here till 8:45. That's just how one example of how more buses and more drivers into the paratransit system will help. Another thing on your agenda today is you're approving markers to go on to help the visually impaired navigate around the bus system. And you have a couple of blind people that are speaking. Be nice if you talk to us blind people before, if you do approve it, but before you put the markers out, so that way we explain to you how they're supposed to be put into the system so you don't mess it up. And that way it's done right the first time instead of having to do it again and even mess more money in the system.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. All right. Seeing no further public comment, if there's anybody else who'd like to speak under public comment, this would be, okay, come on down. No, you're okay. Come on down. Okay. Michael, can see. Where you go? There you go.
It is. Hi, Dora.
Perfect.
Good morning. My name is Juan Martinez, and this is my fiance Dora Well and our CNI dog baby. I would like to talk about the RTC Access drivers. We had a scheduled trip this past Monday morning at 6:30 a.m. And they no longer do the door-to-door where they knock, so they call us. So we're waiting for a phone call, which it never took place. We had to call them at 6:33 to find out where our driver is. And the dispatcher told us that our driver is downstairs. So we said, okay, we're gonna go down and meet the driver. We go down there, there's no one there. They left. We called the dispatcher back again. They were telling us the driver was there at 6:13 a.m. knocking at our door, which we didn't hear nobody knocking at our door. And so I'm just a little confused that our trip was scheduled at 6:30 and we have 5 minutes after that. And they left us there, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And Dora, would you like to speak?
Good morning, Dora Well for the record. So my concern is just that I take the RTC ride as well, and I have my service dog. So my concern is some people come with dogs that don't have a leash, and I was wondering if maybe they can regulate that. If they say it's a service dog, but they're barking and all over the place, that they could be mandatory to have a leash or have the dog behave so it doesn't distract my dog or bite me or bite my dog, because it's my dog is my responsibility and I'm his. So it's just a concern about that. I know it's going to be a lot of responsibility on the bus drivers, but I cannot approach the customer and tell them, please, can you restrain your dog, because they might throw something at me and I can't see at all. So another thing is on the item 3.5, we tried to look at it and we couldn't pull up the packet. And if it is about bus stops and their polls, it would be really helpful if we are involved. The National Federation of the Blind is championing this, so please involve us. My phone number is 775-501-4653. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you, Juan. And then, Michael, will you help with them get a, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Is there any further public comment this morning from the audience? All right. All right. Seeing none, what we'll do is I'll have staff meet up with Dora in the back, or somebody will get some more information from them. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. We are on to, Mr. Director, we're on to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we are on to 2.1, I'm sorry, 2.2, accept the monthly summary
Thank you.
reports.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you for keeping me on task there. Yeah, we are on to 2.2, accept the monthly reports for the technical and citizens multimodal and regional road impact fee advisory committees. Looking for a motion.
Move to accept.
I have a motion from Mayor Smith, second from Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, now, Mr. Director, we're on to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, the consent items are those items that are routine business matters, and staff would recommend approval. If there are any questions about the concerns raised during public comment on 3.5, Deputy Executive Director Cummings could answer any of those questions, but otherwise, everything's in order for approval.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. If we could pull 3.5 for further discussion.
Okay. So I have would you like to put that in a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move to pull 3.5 for further discussion.
Okay. So move to pull 3.5 for further discussion, but the remainder of the consent agenda would be okay. So,
So
Yeah,
yeah,
move
we'll
to-
just do 3.5. Let's just pull 3.5.
Let's get a motion.
To accept the remaining.
Yeah, let's get a vote on the motion. Is the motion to pull 3.5 and approve the remainder?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Correct. Pull 3.5 and approve the remainder of the items.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
Ms. Weber asked if she needs to be sworn in.
No, she's not as an alternate.
Okay.
She's as an alternate. You're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
why do we want to swear at you?
There's no swearing this morning, Ms. Weber. No swearing.
Why do we have?
This is a family-oriented board here.
It's early.
It's early.
I swear.
Yeah. All right, 3.5. So we have we have a motion on the floor, motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on 3.5.
Thank you. Amy Cummings with RTC. 3.5 is the recommendation for our 2019 Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program. This is funding left over from a project that was not able to move forward, so we issued an additional call for projects for this funding. We received 2 applications. One was a joint application from Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County for regional traffic calming. So those are the variable message signs that are portable, as well as the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And one was from RTC Transit for the bus stop ADA signage, and I think that's what the public comments were in reference to. And Ed Park is our project manager, so he can answer more specific questions about that. This came out of our ADA transition plan, and there was the need identified to have fonts, or some of the fonts on our current bus stop signs are too small for the height at which they're posted. So the concept here was to have a smaller placard midway down the bus stop pole that could have the larger font and could also be something that would allow customers to recognize a bus stop pole as opposed to some other traffic sign sort of pole. So if you do have additional questions on that, Ed is here as well to answer those.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. To the public commenters' concerns, was any particular group consulted with regards to the improvements to the signage?
It was discussed at our technical advisory committee. This is just to identify the funding, and as we move forward, we will certainly do additional outreach with our customers, particularly the ones who are here today.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on 3.5?
I had some more questions on the dogs, but I think that's not under this item.
No, we'll take that under member comments. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So now looking for a motion, seeing no further questions, looking for a motion to accept 3.5.
So moved.
I have a motion. Second by Commissioner Weber. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to item 4. We're out of our consent agenda. Item 4, Mr. Director. Would we like to take 4.2, or do you want to do?
I can do 4.1.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so I'd like to start first in my Executive Director's report with the Keolis performance update. And I am very pleased to report that for the first time in a very long time, we have had and get ready for this, we have had a system-wide increase in ridership of 2.5%. Now, let me repeat that. That's a system-wide increase in ridership of 2.5%. That's not an increase on the Lincoln Line. That's not an increase on any specific route. That is a system-wide increase. That's the first increase in ridership in 13 months. I want to thank Keolis for a job well done. Our on-time performance is up to 92.6, over 90%, which was last month, their first month of running the system. They've also delivered 99.99% of scheduled service for the month. That is a huge increase, and that has a lot to do with the increase and improvement in the operator, supervisor, the entire staffing base. That has really, they've really worked through a number of issues and helped improve that labor situation. Keolis did have 65 missed trips for the month versus 431 in the first month, but that's an 85% decrease, and I expect that will continue to go down, continue to improve. So overall, I have to tell you, when I saw that 2.5% increase, I kind of fell out of my chair. That's something we've been struggling with. We've been kind of stable to declining. We haven't seen an increase like that in a long time, and it's system-wide. System-wide during a period of time where Virginia Street is a little bit different today. We're not able to operate and provide the level of service that we typically provide on Virginia Street, which is our bread and butter. So that's pretty phenomenal. So I want to thank Abul Hassan and the entire Keolis team for a job well done, and also Mark Maloney and his staff for a job well done. Moving on, RTC continues to build. Hold on.
Can we finish and then you ask the question? All right. Well, Commissioner Hart.
I just wanted him to define a missed trip. What's a missed trip mean?
A missed trip is a trip that just doesn't occur for whatever
So
reason.
people are standing at the bus stop and the bus doesn't come.
Mark will give you a legal definition pursuant to the
I'll
contract.
give you a contractual definition. Mark Maloney, Director of Transportation. The missed trip in our contract means the follower has passed the next one. So it could be a trip that's 15 minutes late, but you're on a 10-minute frequency, and the other buses beat the one that's behind. So if a bus has an accident or has to be replaced because somebody had an incident on the bus, that can cause it to be late, and that's a technical missed trip. It doesn't mean that we didn't have the service run. It just meant it was later than the previous bus that follows it.
Okay, thank you.
I would point out, it could be that the service wasn't run.
Yeah, well, I just wanted a definition of missed trip. Thank you.
So moving on, the RTC continues to build partnerships with local organizations to support our regional events, and our continuing efforts, and this I think is part of the increase in ridership, and our continuing efforts to increase transit ridership. We're going to be offering transit service on Route 7 to the Reno Air Races, community takeoff celebration on September 7th, and to the air races, which start the following week. Again, part of, I want to provide a more detailed report next month, but we've been sort of working through this series of incentivized events, free trips, really to help induce people to come out, and I think it's working, and I think we need to explain to you all more fully how that's helping contribute to the increase in ridership. We're also going to partner with the Nugget to provide bus service shuttle for the Best in the West Rib Cook-Off that's coming up, and we'll also have transit service on the UNR to Midtown Direct to the UNR Wolfpack home football games. I'll talk a little bit more about UNR here in a minute. Details and route schedules for the Wolfpack football games will be announced in next month's e-news board update. Also, it'll be on our website at rtcwashoe.com and our special social media channels. Now, going on to kind of UNR, I'm really pleased to announce, so as I mentioned earlier, we have a service increase, but we've also got some disruptions to service on Virginia Street. We are going to start the new UNR to Midtown Direct starting August 25th. The new route will replace the Sierra Spirit service and will be a temporary until we begin the Rapid Virginia Line extension when we're done with the Virginia Street project. Free rides will be offered on the UNR to Midtown Direct from August 25th through September 8th, and on September 9th, regular ride fares will become effective. For more detailed, visit, go to our website and follow us on social media. Dan LeBlanc is here, and I want to call out Dan because Emma Crossman is not here. Last week, we completed the California Keystone improvements. For me personally, that's very good because I drive that every day. And as we all know, that began on June 10th. The project improves safety and access for drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians with wider sidewalks. The addition of new pedestrian ramps at the intersection. Access for everyone is now in compliance with the ADA. These neighborhood enhancements have been well received by the community. I can testify to the cleaners in the shopping center there, because that's where I drop off my laundry. They were quite pleased when that was open. Again, a project well done. This represents a $2.5 million investment in our community. And I do want to again thank Emma Crossman for being the lead on that, and Dan LeBlanc and Mark Wells is out there too. I don't want to not acknowledge him. We really appreciate the hard work SNC has done. We wanted to get this project done for school, but we also, this is sort of, part of the master plan, if you will, of helping manage traffic during Virginia Street as that construction continues to move north. So. On September 12th, we will host a community open house and meeting for the RTC Affordable Housing Study at the McKinley Arts and Culture Center at 4 p.m. with a presentation at 5 p.m. We invite the public to attend the meeting to give input to identify opportunities for affordable housing near transit routes. And please join us for a discussion on this critical need. This is a very innovative study. I've been through some of the briefings. I know we had a briefing last month on this. This is something I think could be a game changer for our community as we link our initiatives to planned transit with opportunities to help encourage the development of affordable housing. After housing, transportation is your second most highest cost a household incurs. And I know for a lot of the income challenged households out there, I think this is something that could really improve the housing market situation for our community. Continuing to move on, a 21-day public comment participation period will begin August 30th and ends on September 19th for the federal fiscal year 2020 through 2024 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which was developed in accordance with the FAST Act. A copy of the RTIP is available for viewing and comment during regular business hours at the RTC Planning Office at 1105 Terminal Way, Suite 211. That's in Reno. The document is also available at rtcwashoe.com. Comments can also be mailed to the RTC Planning Offices, 1105 Terminal Way, Suite 211, Reno, Nevada, 89502. And you can also provide comments onto the website. I want to thank all of the planning staff and the engineering staff and the NDOT staff for working on this. This is a collaborative effort. This is a critical point and a critical decision point for us to continue to move projects forward. The Shared Federal Framework, I want to talk a little bit about that. We had a strong participation yesterday from local energy entities and agencies from across the region. A wide-ranging discussion occurred with respect to the different policy areas, including a lands policy, water and wastewater infrastructure, as well as transportation, aviation, and all elements of our community. We will continue to work with everyone and participate in pulling priorities together, and we'll probably bring an agenda item back next month on this. Upcoming board meetings, the Board Transit Workshop, we are kind of rescheduled for October, and that concludes my director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Is there any, Commissioner Harton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson, where are we on Lemon Valley Drive? Can you give us an update on that?
We are in the process of negotiating a contract with Jacobs, and we'll bring a contract forward next month.
Okay,
That's for preliminary engineering, NEPA, and design-build procurement services. So we're going to attempt to design-build to move that project as quickly as possible through the pipeline and get it done.
All things being equal, and I understand that they never
Commissioner
are.
John Harton, we're not agendized for it.
No, I understand.
Okay.
Just, when do we anticipate actually putting a shovel in the ground?
Let us bring that forward in a schedule with the scope of services.
Okay.
That'd be a better time to deal with that.
Also, Mr. Gibson, can you tell me where we are in, with the light at Egyptian, Sunset, and Pyramid?
That one I will defer to Brian.
Just, are we,
Good morning, Brian Stewart, Director of Engineering. We're still working with NDOT and the county on piecing that together as far as moving that signal ahead and getting that important infrastructure installed.
Okay, all right. I appreciate it. I'd like to talk to you, Brian, when we get off the line. There's some real challenges, and we need to get it moved forward as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
One more item I'd like to add that I should have added in my report too. I believe we are working with NDOT and should have an agreement hammered out for the Pyramid Highway improvements too. So that's coming up.
Fantastic.
So read your mind.
All right, we are on to item 4. If there were no further questions for the director in regards to his executive director report, we're on to 4.2, our federal report.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to point out Anya Graves and Congressman John Porter in the audience. And since our federal representatives are here in town today, they are going to give the federal report.
Well, welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you, Ms. Graves. And Mr. Porter, how are you, sir?
Good morning. My name is Anya Graves. I'm here from Cardinal Infrastructure in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to get started and then turn it over to John. So you also have a copy of this report in your packet. So before departing Washington, D.C. For summer recess, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee unanimously passed a highway portion of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. The good news is the bill would increase highway spending approximately 27%. The bad news is that no funding has been identified to pay for that. So needless to say, there's quite a bit more work that needs to be done in Washington on reauthorization of the FAST Act. I am really happy to report, though, that the RTC successfully advocated for expanding the Safe Routes to Schools program. So not only does it include elementary school students and junior high students, but now it will include funding for safety programs for high school students. So that was something we advocated for and were successful at. We'll know more when they finally pass the bill, but I'm pretty confident it will make it into the final version of the bill that is signed into law. Let's see. As I mentioned, there are a lot of other things that have to happen. So the EPW was the first committee to act. The Senate Finance Committee is in charge of coming up with the funding for the reauthorization bill. They have not yet planned to take action. Further, the Senate Banking Committee, which is in charge of the transit title of the legislation, has also not started drafting their portion of the bill. And then the Senate Commerce Committee, which is in charge of the interstate commerce and safety parts of the bill, they also have not yet begun work on the bill. On the House side, the T&I Committee have been holding hearings, but they have not started drafting the bill either. But progress has been made, and the FAST Act does not expire until October of next year. Let's see. I'm not sure about what the appetite for raising the gas tax will be, especially in an election year, but the bill would need to be supported pretty unanimously by House and Senate leadership, both Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle, and the administration. So if all those stars align, then I suspect we'll have a reauthorization bill next year. If not, I think we can look forward to continuing resolutions, maybe on a short-term basis, or it could be sort of a year-long approach. I don't know how they'll treat that, but next year probably midsummer, we'll know. Let's see. I'm going to skip over, there was a capital investment grant hearing that occurred on the House side, the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee. And the acting FTA administrator testified there and did say she had a number of projects. She didn't mention our project specifically, but she said there were a number of projects that she had allocated money to that she was expecting to sign grant agreements by the end of the year. And I think she was referring to 3 projects that received allocations earlier this year, including the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit project. So while she didn't call us out specifically, she referred to the 3 allocations that she has already made and her intention to finalize grant agreements by the end of the year. So that felt like really great news. Also, before departing, the House, Senate, and the administration approved a budget deal which is great news. This means that there is a possibility that the House and Senate will complete their work on appropriations bills by the end of the fiscal year. That said, the numbers aren't as high as the House had hoped, even though they're generally increased over last year's spending numbers. So now the House and Senate will need to negotiate, per the agreement, which I think has a potential of happening. If they can't meet the October deadline, though, I believe that they'll pass very short-term continuing resolutions. However, there's always a small chance that the government might shut down. I'm not anticipating it, I'm not hoping for it, but I've heard rumors. So that's always something to think about, right? Because it has an effect here locally. And let's see. Oh, there have been a number of personnel changes at USDOT of note. USDOT number 2 person, the Deputy Secretary, Jeffrey Rosen, has departed. He is now the United States Deputy Attorney General over the Department of Justice. And so USDOT's Chief Counsel, Steve Bradbury, has taken over as Acting Deputy Secretary, which is good. He also worked at DOT in the Bush administration, so very familiar with transportation generally. Derek Kahn, who was the number 3 person at DOT, is now moved over to the White House. And then sort of more parochially, there's a new associate administrator for planning at FTA, and this is super important to the RTC because this person, Felicia James is her name, is in charge of overseeing all transit programs, all transportation planning programs, and all the capital investment grant programs, like the Virginia Street BRT project. So we look forward to getting to know her. Lee will meet her next time he's in Washington, D.C. And while she's not a transit expert, she did come over from the Federal Highway Administration, so she's a transportation person. I think that's all I have to report, John.
Thank you, Ms.
Happy to
Graves.
answer questions, too, if you have any.
All right, we'll save those to the end, and then
Thank you.
Don't go too far, because the onslaught will probably come.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr.
I did match my tie with the chairman, so
Oh,
thank you for letting me know.
Thanks for calling this morning.
Again, it's an honor for me to be here. I just want to step back for a moment and kind of explain how your government affairs team works, because it is very, very unique and very powerful in the organization that Lee has put together. We meet every week, and sometimes, at a minimum of an hour, with the staff at RTC. And many times, many of you as the board members will share in. But we literally start the week with a conference call. And Jane's here, who I know you know really well. Jane, Anya, you have a really great team. A newest member of that is Ashley Jonke, who's here with us, with the Porter Group. But I want to applaud the network that's been created by the RTC. It helps us have an understanding literally on a weekly basis. Now, there's probably dozens of calls in addition to that, of course, but it gives us a feel from funding to operations of the bus service to what's happening politically, what's happening in the environment. So I know sometimes we move on and take care of other business, but I want you to know that you have a solid team. And Michael, I know he was given kudos earlier, but it's a great model for government relations working with Lee and the team. And I'm not here for contract renewal, so that has nothing to do with it. It's just my observation. I've been lobbied by some of the best and worst in my 25 years of office, so I applaud you. I want to talk for a moment a little bit about the environment. Anya is certainly a depth of knowledge on policy and with Jane and some of our team. But on the political side, where I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's going to happen next and try to anticipate the environment, as you all know, and Mayor, I know you were there yesterday, and Vaughn and Bonnie, so you've heard me say this, but the environment is really ugly. And I know I'm not telling you something you don't know. But I kind of want to cut through that environment that you read and see and tweet and Facebook and Instagram or whatever all the other media sources are. I have to understand the members of the U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate are equally confused. And contrary to what you may see on these networks, whether social or traditional, members of Congress really do work very well together. And they try really hard. And when I say Congress, it's Senate as well.
Believe it or not, they really do. There's camaraderie, and there really are things that are happening contrary to what you see. But I want to let you know that there's so much information now bombarding elected officials, whether you're here or you're in Washington, D.C. And that's really why it's so important that you continue what you're doing and your approach to working with the delegation. You know, I've heard me say for years how important it is to be engaged with the federal process, especially whether you're NDOT, especially, or the airport, RTCs. The bulk of the federal monies coming to the communities are transportation related. And one day is like dog years in Washington, you know, it's 7. Things are changing rapidly. Leadership's changed, new rules, new opportunities. And as Anya mentioned, there's a turnover and a lot of empty rooms still, a lot of empty chairs in the administration. The change is constant, but it's accelerated. And that's why back to your team and what you're suggesting as far as helping to convene other local governments through the shared federal framework here is really strong. Bonnie, to you, thank you for your leadership in that for many years. But literally yesterday, I know that you're going to have follow-up on this, but I think that the public should know and the board how powerful yesterday's meeting was. We had Flood District, Carson, I know I'm going to miss somebody, but this Reno, Story County, RCVA, RTAA, Washoe County, of course, School District, NACO, UNR, NDOT, many of the tribes, Sparks, and again, I may have missed someone. But here you had the core of your elected officials, and Vaughn, thank you for being there, sitting down and talking about community-wide, regional-wide challenges that we can share collectively in Washington. And part of that was stressing that each community is going to have its own issues. This isn't about competing for projects. It's that when you show up collectively as a region, a couple of things happen. One, people don't really want to mess with the whole region. And when you can talk millions of visitors and the impact of your public service, when you talk about the impact in Washington based upon this collective group, it's really powerful. So thank you and look forward to working on that moving forward, but it's really critical. The environment, the relationships, you need to keep doing what you're doing because as I was alluding, they're bombarded every day by stuff, okay, noise. And every time that this region shows up, especially collectively, it really cuts through the noise. So I applaud you. A little bit about the delegation, and then I'm happy, I'm sure, with Anya to answer any questions. But, you know, there was quite a change when Senator Reid decided to retire. I think we were, in many respects, very spoiled. We had the majority leader, one of the most powerful people in the world, representing Nevada interests. And certainly the senator, this is not a partisan conversation, this is purely facts about Nevada. Many times the senator would come through, most times, if there was something that was important to the community of Nevada, he was there. So we kind of got spoiled. But today, we have a new leadership and a lot of good things happening. I, again, mentioned it yesterday for those that were there, but Catherine Masto is doing an awesome job. She's a tremendous leader in Washington, has her door open for RTC and other communities of interest here in Nevada, northern Nevada. She's got a great staff. She's now in leadership, running the senatorial committee. Solid pathway and very helpful, always has her door open to help. Senator Rosen as well, solid. I think many of you knew her as a member of the House. But she has a very solid staff for a new U.S. Senator and being very responsive. Now, some of the logistics have changed in meetings, but that's for another time. But it's really solid what's happening. It's very comforting for us to have the team that's working together. Of course, in the House, I could pick on Mr. Amodei, especially if he was here. I think we all like to pick on Mark. Doing an amazing job, and I can't tell you how many times he literally will go to an agency, wherever it is in the country, to make sure they're taking care of Nevadans. His leadership, he's only member on appropriations right now, so he plays a major role. And yes, there still is funds available in many respects. Congresswoman Titus is the senior member Democrat, but also now a subcommittee chairman of economic development and public facilities, also a leader. Susie Lee's doing a great job. And again, my job in our team is to make it work, whoever's in office, and my job is to also give you what I think is the strengths and weaknesses. Susie Lee's also doing a great job. Will someday be governor or president herself. She's working hard. Stephen Horsford, many of you have worked with in the past, has knowledge and experience. So the important thing is we continue those relationships. You're doing a great job. The delegation is trying very hard. And again, we're proud to represent the RTC. So happy to answer any questions. The environment is difficult, but we can cut through that noise by what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate you coming this morning and delivering that, and Ms. Graves as well. So are there questions from the board in regards to? No? Seeing none? Well, good job. I think is the constant sentiment. We do really appreciate all the work that the team does, from Jane to you, Congressman, and Anya. I mean, it's phenomenal. And we understand how important it is to have that kind of representation in Washington, D.C. on our behalf, while we have to continue to conduct business here at home. And so we have great faith in the individuals that represent us back in Washington. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you so much. All right, seeing no further questions on that, we're on to item 4.3. This is our NDOT monthly report, and we have Ms. Director Swallow.
Hi, it's good to be here. The two items that you're most interested in are under agenda item 5, so I will just provide you with a couple of updates on some projects that I mentioned earlier this year. I-80, the pavement rehab and safety improvement project that we've been working on for the better part of the year, is still ongoing. We're at 86% complete. We anticipate the paving to be complete in the next couple of weeks, striping by the end of September, and from everything I hear, it is going well. The only thing that you may be particularly interested in today is that this weekend, the Keystone Interchange and Virginia westbound on-ramp will be closed for some marathon paving. So just trying to get done and get out of the way before the winter comes and get the project benefits for the public. The other two projects I wanted to mention were the Kitsky project and the 2nd Street project. Both of these are, they were bike lanes, mobility improvements for the sidewalks, some preservation work and safety improvements. They include, the 2nd Street one includes the roundabout at 2nd and Giroux. And again, they are actually both, Kitsky is complete. 2nd is going to be complete here in the next few weeks, and will be out of everyone's way. And again, we're hearing good feedback on the improvements that are already complete on both of those corridors. So just a real quick update on those before we get to the ones.
The big ones, the big boys later, huh?
Mhm.
Okay. Questions for Director Swallow? Mayor Smith.
Madam Director, going back to the public comment, they're talking about Tyler Way and Pyramid. It's kind of a confluence of Tyler Way and parking lots emptying out, turning right and left, and then we have a crosswalk right in the middle of all of this stuff. It's a pretty dangerous intersection. I think it falls under the category it's too close to other signals to put in another signal. Maybe we can put a flasher in there so when people are crossing, because it is serious.
We'll take a look and let you know
Okay.
what we might be able to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Swallow. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to stick on Pyramid Highway also. Recently, RTC, we, utilizing RIF funds, put a light at Calle de la Plata and Pyramid. Great improvement, no question that in terms of safety, it has made that intersection much safer. We've talked about the flashers in the past, whether they should signal that the light is going to change or whether they should just be on all the time. They are still on all the time. My only comment about the flashers, and then I'd like to talk about the geometry of the intersection here in just a second, but my only comment about the flashers is it makes no difference to me whether they're on constantly or whether they signal that the light is about to change. My only beg would be make them all the same on the Pyramid Highway. Don't have an expectation of one intersection being one way and then another intersection being another way. Just make it consistent, and consistency for the drivers is a safer environment. And then with respect to the geometry, right now, the way the limit lines are set especially for northbound traffic, someone pulling a large trailer, and the people who live on the east side of that intersection are large ranches. They're, typically a minimum 10 acre. Many of them live a wonderful equestrian lifestyle, and many of them have these really long horse trailers. They cannot negotiate that southbound, that left-hand southbound turn without getting into that turn lane. And if we were to, and I had my own engineer out there not last weekend, but the weekend before, on Saturday, we spent several hours out there looking at all manner of things, and just the geometry of that intersection is just really, it's very, very tight. And there's on the west side of the highway, there is a huge business park, so we've got a lot of trucks coming out of there. It makes it difficult for them to negotiate that turn without getting into other travel lanes. And I would love to meet with your deputy. I'm happy to meet you guys out there, or meet anybody out there. Assign me anyone. I don't care who it is, and we can stand there and watch. And I've even got people who have volunteered to take people for a ride while they're towing their trailers, because for them it's very frightening. They're afraid they're going to clip the front of a car because they just can't negotiate those turns. So that would be wonderful. And please, anything that you can do to work with us here at RTC to get a lighted Egyptian and Pyramid. And so it's Egyptian on the west side, Sunset Springs on the east side, and Pyramid. It's desperately needed. There's a school there now. NDOT would not allow another cut between Egyptian and Calle de la Plata. There was supposed to be another access easement. There is not now, and so now we force traffic to come out either north or south. And there's an elementary school there. It's really getting dangerous for the buses, because they'll try to cut straight across the highway from the east side of the highway to the west, and the west to the east, and the speeds along that piece, NDOT raised them back up to 55 miles an hour, and of course when it's 55, people travel 75. And so it's a very arduous affair to get across that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hartung. Any further discussion at this time? I think we're all kind of waiting. Director Swallow, I have just one topic I'd really actually kind of like to bring up. Mountain Rose Highway safety improvements we've talked about for a long time, and I know NDOT's done studies out there. If I could get a report from your staff on what the findings were from that study, and maybe some future planning on what any suggested improvements may be along that corridor as we move into school session. I know I was taking the kids to school this morning, and that traffic has definitely increased, especially with those high schools along that highway. So I want to take a look at that and just keep that on post. And then the one other thing that you did bring up in the last meeting that we had, that the state was still looking at identifying really what your state priorities were going to be, and you were going to bring that back and have that discussion with us. And so I still look forward to having that discussion and really kind of identifying what you, NDOT and the governor and the board of directors feels what those are, and so that we can start working with you and to help moving forward in a functional format.
So just a quick response on that. The implementation of the One Nevada plan that everybody worked so hard to agree on last year, the implementation of that, our consultant contract is on our agenda for this next Transportation Board meeting on Monday.
Great.
So you'll be hearing more on that as we move forward, and I'll get back to all of you on the other items.
Fantastic. That's great. All right. So seeing nothing further, this is not an action item. We will close item 4.3, which is the NDOT monthly report, and we will move directly into 5.1. This is Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, your next item is item 5.1, receive a report on the NDOT Spaghetti Bowl project and provide input accordingly. Jenica Keller from the Nevada DOT and I believe Nick Johnson are going to make themselves available and provide a presentation. Jenica, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As Lee mentioned, I'm Jenica Keller. I work for Nevada Department of Transportation, and I'm a project manager for the Reno Spaghetti Bowl and Spaghetti Bowl Express. The Reno Spaghetti Bowl project is one that will improve safety, efficiency, and operations on I-80, I-580, and US 395, essentially within the McCarran Boulevard Loop. The overall project is estimated to cost more than $2 billion. In order to construct a project of this size and improve capacity and safety as soon as possible, we have developed a phasing plan to build this project over the next 20 years. I wanted to walk through the phasing plan we've put together. Phase 1, also known as Spaghetti Bowl Express, improves I-580 in the southbound direction from I-80 to Villanova. We're going to talk more about the Phase 1A, Phase 1B, and what those will do, but the construction windows there are shown. Phase 2 improves the east leg of the bowl from Kidski to East McCarran. We've got the date range there, 2024 to 2028. Phase 3 improves the northern leg from Glendale to north of Clearacre. As you can tell, this phase is a few years longer, and that's primarily because of the right-of-way needs and the process and the time that takes. Phase 4 finishes up the southern leg from South McCarran up to Mill Street. And the last phase is Phase 5, which improves the western leg from Keystone to Kidski, completing this program of projects. Spaghetti Bowl Express is a top priority for the Nevada Department of Transportation. We recognize this is a high crash location that many of us in the room drive through often, if not daily. Even though we have shifted away from design build, rest assured we have not shifted any resources from the advancement of this important project. In fact, design has already begun on 2 separate projects, Phase 1A and Phase 1B. The overall goal of Spaghetti Bowl Express is to improve safety, efficiency, and operations in and around the Spaghetti Bowl with a focus on improving east to south flow and southbound in general. The yellow shown in the upper right part of the slide represents the sections of I-80, southbound I-580, and southbound 395 that will be improved as part of SBX. The simulated photo in the center of the slide provides a view as you look to the south of the improvements SBX will make to the 2nd and Glendale and Mill Street interchanges. The next few slides dive into the specifics of 1A and 1B. Phase 1A will relocate utilities and construct walls similar to what's shown on the slide. Construction on this project will begin early next year, and we anticipate will be complete in 1 construction season. This project completes some of the early work, preparing the way for the larger freeway project. Phase 1B, as we discussed earlier, is the work on I-80, southbound 580, and southbound 395, improving safety and efficiency with a focus on the southbound direction. Let's walk through the improvements and also the schedule. On eastbound I-80, the freeway will be signed and striped so that we have 2 dedicated lanes that are headed to the south. Eastbound I-80 exit ramps, today it tapers from 2 lanes down to 1. It will have 2 dedicated lanes that come in all the way onto the freeway. The southbound lane we have 3 lanes, but it drops to 2 as you approach the bowl. That 3rd lane will be restored. So when you come through the entire interchange, there'll be 6 lanes wide, 2 coming from I-80, 3 coming from the south, and then the 1 that goes from west to south. We will also restore or improve lane balance between I-80 and the Villanova exit. And what that means is that we have dedicated on and off-ramp lanes to minimize the weaving that we have today. Construction will begin on the heels of the other phase. We anticipate it will begin in early 2021 and take 3 construction seasons to complete. To learn more about the project, we have a great website that is very informative, and there is my contact information for anyone that wants to get a hold of me after today's meeting, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Great, Jessica, appreciate it. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sure we do have some questions from our board, but we also do have public comment. So what I'll do is take public comment first, and then we'll come back and have some more robust conversation from the board. So first up, I have Craig Madole with AGC.
Good morning. I'm Craig Madole with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors. I wanted to thank this board for your ongoing commitment to support the Spaghetti Bowl project and hopefully deliver this, as we so all know how desperately we need this. But I'd also encourage you to consider, with the delay in the construction of the new roadway to 2021, perhaps there's an opportunity to use some of the $10 million that you were going to pledge to this project in 2020 to deliver a project a little sooner that would ultimately save RTC some money and get some people out to work in that 2020 building season where the Spaghetti Bowl was anticipated to begin construction. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Madole. Next, I have Andrew Diss signed in for the Manello Gaming, or GSR. Morello, sorry.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the RTC Board. Andrew Diss, Vice President of Government Affairs for Morello Gaming, which owns and operates the Grand Sierra Resort. I just want to dovetail off of Mr. Madole's comments. We're a little concerned with this first delay, that it's going to lead into future delays. And all of you already know, how much of an issue the Spaghetti Bowl is. For our team members, as well as our guests, it's going to be a huge issue because we have about 3,000 team members who are coming into work from all over the Truckee Meadows every day. And, the majority of our guests are coming in from over the hills, Sacramento, the Bay Area. They're only coming in one way, but it's our team members that are coming in from all over. And they hit snags and delays, no matter which part of the Truckee Meadows they're coming from. So, as I said, our main concern is we just don't want to see further delays. I believe Mr. Gibson should have received a letter this week from Virginia Valentine, president of the Nevada Resort Association. It's not just a concern for GSR, it's for concern for all the other gaming properties in our region. And two other things I just wanted to touch on, and you guys already know this, but safety. A few months back when the plans for the final project were being vetted and there was public hearings and all that, the RGJ went through and they did a study of the most dangerous roads in the state, and the area around the Spaghetti Bowl came up towards the top. And again, for our team members and for our guests, safety is obviously a top concern for us. So it just illustrates how important getting it done is. And then secondly, economic development. I sit on the EDOM board, and we have monthly conversations about all of the other companies that are coming here. Lots of headquarters are going to be relocating here, and the Spaghetti Bowl is not just important for Reno and Sparks, but really for Story County, even for Carson City, and for all the growth that we're experiencing within the business community here. So again, things you guys already know, but wanted to put them on the record and just address some of those things. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Diss. A couple more coming right now. All right, next up I have Mr. Paul McKenzie. Welcome, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul McKenzie, to represent the Building Construction Trades Council of Northern Nevada. For 4 years, I sat on this board and we advocated for this project, and we got some promises from NDOT about a schedule for it. And as a council member for the Reno City Council, we made commitments to developers to allow them to build based upon the schedule that NDOT promised us. There's actually one developer that can't build because NDOT has delayed this project, and it's going to stretch out their construction on their project by probably 5 to 10 years because of this change in schedule. Delays in this project are going to have a huge economic impact, an impact on the housing market, and they're going to have an impact for accidents and continued congestion in our region. And I just find it really amazing that a #1 priority moving forward over the last 4 years has all of a sudden gone to the back burner, and we're throwing 1, 2, 10, 15, 20-year delays at this project that is so important to this community. It frustrates me to no end that we start out with a design build so we can fast track this project, and then when our design engineers, based upon the continually changing requirements that NDOT is putting on them, comes up with a price that is a little higher than what the original estimate was, all of a sudden we back off and delay the project 2 years. To say the least, I'm a little frustrated, and my frustration will be heard up the chain in the future weeks. But I don't understand how something that was so important a year ago, 2 years ago, all of a sudden we can say that we're going to delay it 2 to 20 years. Now, there's other parts of this project that were built into it that were improvements to the north that there's no discussion about at all. And those are a vital part of completing the total improvements on the Spaghetti Bowl. North of the McCarran Loop are some very important improvements that are on a highway that turns into a parking lot every frigging morning. So we're going to continue to waste our emergency responders' times on I-80 because we're going to delay the wells realignment for 2 years. We're going to continue to pollute this community and to have people parked on 395 North because all of a sudden this isn't a priority. And I just have a tiny bit of frustration on that as a citizen of this community. Besides the fact that these are jobs that we're going to need as the recession comes, that's coming. And we're going to need these jobs to put construction workers to help.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Appreciate it. All right. Next, I have Scott Fullerton.
Thank you, Scott Fullerton. I represent the Operating Engineers Local Union Number 3. I'm here to speak on concerned about the delays on this. You know, when they put on all these seminars earlier this year and last year, we had all these promises of all this work coming into this community, which was positive news for all the construction workers in this community. We represent over 2,000 working men and women out here, and these jobs are going to be vital to them. As Paul pointed out, things are going to slow down. These are important projects, good economy, good money for these people that they're going to put back into this economy, and we don't want to short that. And I'd really appreciate it if we'd look at this and reassess our delay on this. This is important work up here for our contractors and our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fullerton. I appreciate it. All right. Seeing no further signed in public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Madam Vice Chair, sorry, Jeddah Castana. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. We started talking about the Spaghetti Bowl here at the RTC. I know I did, the entire board did about 7 years ago. So Councilmember McKenzie mentioned 4 years, but I remember we started advocating as a board about 7 years. And it was not only advocating on a monthly basis, which Director Gibson, I would like to put this as a standing item for every RTC meeting going forward. We made it as a regional priority, and we were united and unanimous in that priority. When you see the accidents that occur, when you see the gridlock that occurs from the North Valleys, that's only going to get worse. We made it our priority and put aside maybe some of our individual ward priorities or district priorities because we understood the magnitude of this in so many facets. I do understand about the bid that came in so significantly higher than what the estimate was, but I would remind everybody that construction costs aren't coming down anytime soon and are averaging about 5% increase annualized, and that's about $16 million on the 2-year delay on this project, which just October of last year, we were told the Spaghetti Bowl Express would be completed in 2021. So we are 2 years behind on this project. I kind of feel like that's almost where we're at now with the design build getting scrapped, which I'm very disappointed that that happened. That's water under the bridge. I don't know how we can't resurrect that. But we are very nervous here in the north as not a high crash location, as the highest crash location, and per volume, the highest in the state. In the state. There is a motorcyclist who probably got in a wreck on Friday and probably isn't going to live at the Spaghetti Bowl Express area. So when we talk about the magnitude, housing, safety, Our first responders are spending such an inordinate amount of time. We feel as though what we worked on for 7 years is slipping. And we as a community need some assurances that the Spaghetti Bowl fix will be done in its totality. Being in construction perpetuity doesn't make anybody happy, including the user. We want to know that the Band-Aid approaches are not going to be what is adopted here, and that we will fix the whole bowl and commit that we will do it as expedited as we can. I, too, am looking forward to the statewide priorities. I would like to know from the highest in our state that the Spaghetti Bowl is the highest.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I echo my colleagues' sentiments and frustration. I've watched Nevada grow, lived in Las Vegas. My family moved there in '62, and I guarantee you, I'm not angry at you, I'm angry at the whole system. I guarantee you, if this project was in Las Vegas, it would not be on a 20-year time phase. And I guarantee you, I'd like to know, is I-15, 215, or Centennial Bowl in Las Vegas, are they also being pushed back and on a 20-year time phase? And I'll bet you the answer is no. And so, while I recognize that we're the little sister, we've had a lot of promises by NDOT, and we really need to have this project done. And again, Councilwoman Neoma Jordan mentioned the fatalities. You can come up and sit in my office, and you can see that intersection where Wells, that confluence of people trying to get on at Wells and trying to go both north and south. It's dangerous. It really needs to be done. And I recognize that the budgets are a little different than what was anticipated, but I'll bet you that the changes, if they were in Clark County, those changes would be overlooked and just moved on. So that's the frustration that we have here in Washoe. Not mad at you. I understand you're the operator answering the phone. So, so it's the statewide NDOT system, and the amount that flows to Clark County versus the amount that flows to the other 16 counties is not balanced at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to reiterate that it is a high priority project for us. I'm happy to come meet with you as often as you'd like to provide updates on where we are. We are starting next year with the utilities and getting that work out of the way to make for a smoother Phase 1B.
All right. Commissioner Weber, do you have anything?
I'd just like to say ditto to all of these points. And I thank Councilman McKenzie for coming here today, as well as all of you, because we need to do something about this. I don't know, it seems to me, living in the North Valleys for 36 years and using the roads, there's something that needs to be done sooner than later. And I know I'm kind of stepping in today, so I'm not familiar with where we're at, but it seems to me that there has to be an exception to the rule. I know that we've already said, no, we are delaying, but we need to do something more to make NDOT and our governor and the rest of the decision makers, what can we do to make this work now? This is an emergency situation, in my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Weber. I appreciate your comments. Jenica and Director Swallow, and I know this is, I'm going to basically be the broken record here. However, I'm going to say exactly what I've said for the last 4 years or 5 years I've sat on this board. And I know Commissioner Weber was on this board prior to my being elected, and I know she heard it when the initial conversation started 7 years ago, as Vice Chair Jardin pointed out. You know, we talk about transportation, we talk about economic growth, we talk about safety continuously. That seems to be the common discussion point here at the RTC. It's a common discussion point at NDOT. However, we talk about it as if We need to do something into the future. However, what we do on a daily basis is we always talk about it after the accidents have happened, after the problems have occurred, after the growth is already here. And you can't build cities and you can't go and continue to grow cities and communities without having adequate transportation to get people to and from community, to and from their jobs, to and from recreation, to and from school. And we have long not even paid attention to the needs. This should have been addressed 10 years ago. We are 10 years behind. I sat, and I know we've done improvements to I-580 and to I-80 to try to mitigate challenges, but they've been Band-Aid fixes. Band-Aid fixes for the last 10 years. And what frustrates the most, and Jenica, as I look at the project phasing, I look at, Express not even being completely done until 2023, but an entire project, and phase 3 being the most important to me in regards to, as Commissioner Jordan, Vice Chair Jordan pointed out, so many of us have given up on priorities in our own districts and wards to address what we think is the congestive heart failure of our community, and it's at Spaghetti Bowl. We can't bring businesses here. We can't make sure people safely get to and from school. We can't make sure that, by the time my kids, my 5-year-old son will potentially be driving, potentially, at this time. And if you say by the time the whole project is done, I'll be well into my 60s. But nobody on this board will be here. No one will be, our Governor Sisolak will not be in office. He will not be there. He will not, none of this thing we are talking about projects that are taking way too long to get delivered. For citizens, I sat on the improvements from Plum Lane. You want to talk about problems going to the North Valleys that you think it starts at Spaghetti Bowl? I sat in gridlock traffic starting at Plum Lane on 5 lanes of traffic, all bumper to bumper because of accidents that happened up by Park Boulevard. And we sit here and we keep talking about, well, we got to find the money, we got to figure out how we do this, and it's a priority, and we need to do this, and we're committed. Well, we're only committed for terms. We live in our lives through political terms. I'm going to be here for a period, and Governor Sisolak will be here for a period. We'll all be here for a period of time, but if we don't start getting around this as a community, people that live here, and I know Director Swallow, you live here. Everybody lives here. This is something we cannot continue to allow just to let money flow to the south and not stay here in the north. Commissioner Hartung is right. There is a disparity between what goes to the south to Las Vegas and what stays here in northern Nevada. And it is absolutely atrocious that we continue to let that happen. And I won't sit here as the chairman of this board and let those kinds of discussions even continue to participate, because this phase is disgraceful. This should have been done, this should be well before this. 15 years this project should be completed, not 20, 25. This is the Project Neon to the north. This makes me sick, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say it right here on the record, because those kinds of things are just not acceptable, because I can't continue to sit as a commissioner and say things are going to be okay in Washoe County and growth is going to continue to go on a normal growth when we have congestive heart failure. And RTC does the best we can to continue to mitigate traffic around our community through different roads and connectors that we build, but it's still not enough. People still need those freeways. And if we don't get those freeways done and we don't address them now and we don't take this very seriously, then we're going to die as a community, and people are going to die. Everybody's kid and kid or people that are family members that are on that road have a potential of losing their life every time they go on that road. It's a gamble. It really is a gamble. Welcome to a gambling state, but this is the wrong type of gambling I want to be dealing with. So I hope everybody, and I'm not yelling at you, I'm frustrated and I'm disappointed that we are having this conversation still today, and that there isn't a shovel in the ground and that we're not moving forward. And that's really what I want to put on the record. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, we're saying this, but what are we going to do about it? It doesn't work. Sorry. I'm glad I get to be sitting here today, because this is so important. What are we going to do? We can't we're talking to someone, Jenica, that can't really do anything. What can we do now? What is the point? I mean, I hope that you all that are here, let's do something.
Yeah, I agree with you. Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I'll be brief. I think you're seeing 7 years of frustration coming to a head here because we worked so hard and got to a point of, yes, we're doing it and we're doing it right and we're doing it completely. And that there is the political will there to pull the trigger on the big project. And it feels as though in a few short months, that seems to be slipping because of the change from the design build. I think there is an opportunity to right the ship. And it is, NDOT, we're all partners in this. We, the governor, us, NDOT, we stand ready to help make this happen as quickly as we can. 7 years ago, I know we're all good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. That is our responsibility. 7 years ago, when we started discussions on this, well, we didn't have official bids on it. The price tag of the bowl fix, the whole bowl fix, was $1 billion. The term I heard today was $2 billion. So my concern is 2-year delay, 5-year delay. Forget the impacts to those that suffer accidents or sit in gridlock for endless hours and the economic building of houses that won't happen because they were conditioned on this. I'm fearful that if we are waiting for a better price tag, we are going to be sorely disappointed. So however we can right this ship, and you sound as if you're ready to give a response here. We are frustrated. We are our community's voice who stands united in needing this fixed, and we are pleading with our representatives at NDOT and the governor's office to do right by Northern Nevada.
Director Swallow.
Thank you for your comments and feedback on this. I would like to say that our whole team is also frustrated that this is the path that we are on. But we need to be effective stewards of the taxpayer dollar and want to make sure that we mitigate any of those risk items and make sure that we have guarded that appropriately. And so are moving forward with the project. It remains a commitment to us. Nothing has stopped. We will come back if it is your desire and provide monthly updates on the project so that you're aware of where we are and how it's moving forward. That's not at all a problem or a concern. And then the only other thing is, as far as project phasing goes, we would have been scheduled to award, if all had gone well with the design build here next week on Monday. That's when we would have been scheduled. And then the design builder would have had to move forward with their design. As it stands, our consultant is already moving forward with design. So we are moving forward with the project. The design is ongoing. It is a commitment to us, remains a commitment to us. That has not changed. And we will continue to provide updates to you moving forward so that you understand if anything does come up. Any delays that come up would have been delays realized by the design builder. We're going to try to mitigate those as best as we can, and we will work with you to find ways through them if we need to. You have my commitment on that.
I appreciate it, Director Swallow. And Jenica, thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate all the conversation. Well, hopefully what we'll do is we'll just continue to be optimistic and not pessimistic that this is going to be delivered in a timely manner, and then we'll see some resolve. So with that, we're going to move on to item 5.
Mr. Chairman, I have to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for what you suggested, but as the council person and serving on this commission, the RTC commission, for all these years, I don't see how we can just not have a plan, not have a way that we can go to someone and talk to them. There are many people here that if we were united and we would go to, I'm really into going to an NDOT meeting and saying, we need to have a fast fix. We need to do something now. It's an emergency. This really, truly is an emergency. We have all the people in the North Valleys, as we've suggested. We have 10,000 homes coming in, are being built right now, let alone anything else. Maybe it's 8,000, but it's still a lot of homes. We already have all this doesn't anybody consider this an emergency? Because I really do think it's an emergency. So I just had to say that, and I'm so thankful for the people that are here to speak about it, but I don't think we can just say, okay, let's wait for the next update. I mean, I hope you understand it's not attacking you or anyone else, but I think as a community, as the commission, as council and county and all of us, we need to stand up and say, it's time that you listen and we do something now. We can't keep waiting. We can't keep putting it off.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to continue to beat on you guys, but here's the issue, Director Swallow. Promises were made. We made promises to our constituents. Now we're having to go back and revise those promises. And as Ms. Jardin had mentioned, timelines were set, and now those timelines are going to have to be revised because they were contingent upon 395 North being completed. Please don't go back on the promises that you've just made now, that NDOT has just made now, with respect to the timeframes. We have to keep moving forward on this. We cannot go back and say, well, we made a mistake and it's going to be another 2 years. We're already in broken territory. So please, let's, to the extent that you can, and I recognize that you answer to higher authorities also, we would appreciate your help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for everybody's comments this morning. I know this is a very, like I said, contentious and very emotional issue, and there's a lot of concern. So we will hope to continue down a path and to some rectification soon. All right, so with that, we'll close 5.1. We'll bring it back to the board, and we'll take on 5.2.
Mr. Chairman, item 5.2 is to receive a presentation on the NDOT US 395 North Valleys Improvement Project. Nick Johnson from NDOT. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, glad you didn't leave the room.
Good morning. Morning, Chairman, board members. For the record, Nick Johnson, NDOT. I'm filling in for Pedro here this morning who couldn't attend. So I'm going to go through pretty quickly, give you guys a quick overview of the scope, talk about the current status of the project. And yes, we're still moving forward and we're continuing to move this project forward. And we'll talk a little bit about that and what we're doing there. Here we go. Okay, so here's a graphic that we've shown before. As many of you recall, the phases of these North Valleys project came out of the traffic study we did a few years ago. Our goal for this first phase has always been to try to get as far north as we possibly can with the budget that we have. And that's what we're continuing to do. So, previously our thought and our goal was to get out to Lemon Drive. As we're working through this, as we're getting into the final design now with estimates, things like that on a constrained budget, this is probably going to be somewhere in between Lemon, most likely Golden Valley for that first phase. But we're still continuing to do the final design on this. Be as efficient as we can so that we can get as much done in that first phase. And as many of you mentioned, there's a lot of vehicles coming down that stretch of roadway into the bowl, so we want to get these improvements done. As we've always discussed as well, this is a project that's going to come on the tail end of the SBX, and that's still the case, and I'll touch a little bit about that here at the end. So just to run through the scope really quick. Currently, you have 2 lanes in the southbound, you have 3 going north. We want to add a general purpose lane in the southbound, but we also want to add auxiliary lanes between the ramps in both directions. So that, that's part of helping with the operations, which, improves the safety of the freeway there. A couple of other items, bigger scope items, replacing the Parr-Dandini Bridge over the 395 freeway there, constructing braided ramps between Panther Valley and Golden Valley. If you guys remember what a braided ramp is through the presentations of the Spaghetti Bowl, doing my little hand puppet show where you have one ramp coming over, another one going underneath, so we'll have one of those in northbound. Now, in regards to the 2 slides ago when I talked about Lemon Drive and the limits and those sorts of things, it's looking like this is going to be a phase 2 or maybe a standalone project. Again, as we move forward with the budget we have, we'll see how much of this we can get as far north as we can. A couple of other things, there'll be retaining walls out there, there will be sound walls out there, including landscape and aesthetic elements, just like we've done on other projects throughout the community. And then the Phase 2 improvements, very similar to Phase 1, but adding a general purpose lane in each direction, and where warranted, we'll look at aux lanes between the ramps or any type of ramp improvements at the interchanges with Lemon, Stead, moving north. Now, currently where we're at here. So we've completed our preliminary design. We're in the final design stages right now, so we're still continuing efforts there, even completing the environmental work. Now, we've talked before, this is a categorical exclusion. It's a CE, so it's very straightforward, but we have to do some additional work there in regards to sound and air quality, so we're working on those, hence the sound walls that I talked about a few slides ago, so that'll be part of it. And again, we're balancing the scope with the budget. So I think, estimated and what we have available is roughly somewhere between, I think, $85 and $100 million for this project, so we're gonna get as much scope done as we can. And then whatever's left will be part of Phase 2 or other elements moving forward in the future. Final design is progressing. You guys have probably seen some cones out there, equipment out there. It's for geotechnical investigations. We're out there drilling holes, figuring what's out there so we can continue that progress. And then pretty soon here, you're gonna see more of that. We're going to have companies out there, locating utilities, doing potholes, things like that, all part of that design process so that we can get to construction. Schedule-wise, so as I mentioned earlier, the goal, the plan has always been to come on the tail end of the SPX, partly because we don't want 15 miles of traffic control and lane restrictions and two contractors on top of each other where the projects interact. So SPX moving slightly, we're going to move this one slightly as well, to the next construction season. We're still progressing everything as is, and this is, what it will look like moving forward. Now, one item I do want to talk about is, we're also looking for opportunities for maybe, elements of scope that maybe we can advance, to get this thing moving forward in the future, maybe while the SPX is going on. The Par Bridge is one that we're considering or looking at right now, just so that we can try to get some of these things out and going. There are going to be big construction impacts, even with the larger projects, so that we can help facilitate some of that and get it done sooner. So I think, the point here is we're committed to doing this. We want to get stuff done. We recognize the issues that are out there, and we're continuing to make progress and look for different ways that we can get things done and get it moving forward. So with that, are there any questions?
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, I appreciate you being here. So essentially, you're saying that this is also being everything's being put off by a couple of years here. But can you go back to your last slide? Because I want it up there. Under bid construction. So under bid construction 22-23, that means that's when we bid and start construction.
That is correct.
That's not in a completed time frame, 23.
That is correct. That's when we're going to get that thing started.
Yeah, okay. Again, we're very frustrated. I'll just leave it at that. I cannot begin to express my level of frustration at this point because this is such a key piece in the valley. This is the common thread, north, south, east, west. This is the whole thing. It's all tied together.
Commissioner Weber. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you. We just had a meeting, a workshop on the same project with our NAB about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. And it seems to me that I'm really emotional about this because it's like we've been lied to. If you think about it, we've been lied to. We've shared with constituents, with people that live in the North Valleys. We've been working on it. People have been asking for this for so many years. We've had governors who have said in their State of the Cities for the last about last 15 years at least, that we were going to have this expansion and that we were going to have another lane. And it seems like it's just all a bunch of lies to our community, to the people that are building, to all of us. It's just lies. We've told lies. We've participated in those, all of us.
Vice Chair Jordan.
Thank you very much. I guess my question would be, I know this was presented at a neighborhood advisory board about 2 months ago, and I think has this differed from what was presented there?
Yes. A lot's changed in the last month, so we've had to make the adjustments.
And the adjustments are how much of a delay?
I think it's roughly about a year, because we had it before at 21, 22, that fall, to get those bids out, so that we were on the tail end of the SBX. And now with, moving things approximately a year.
So this wasn't a design bid issue?
No.
It wasn't okay. So this is behind and didn't have anything to do with the bids?
No, it's not behind. We were on track, but we do not want them happening at the same time, the SBX and the North Valleys.
Why?
Why?
You'll have,
One's east-south, one's...
You'll have lane closures from, north of Lemon all the way to Plum, possibly. In addition to that, you could have overlapping contracts, which also poses a risk with two different contractors.
I'm going to... Never mind. There's a pattern, and that's what our frustration is in this pattern.
Nick, I'd like to go back to something really quick. In your presentation, you said some of the challenges were because of funding. Is it an annualized funding for the north, or speak a little bit more to the funding piece for me?
Well, it's always been, we've had that amounts, for this project, and as we're getting into it and we're designing, it's just, we're fine tuning that. And it's like you guys had talked about earlier, costs are going up.
Right.
And so we're trying to maximize that scope with what we have.
Okay.
And that's a balance that we're going to have to, work out as we continue on over the next couple of years.
So was the budget set for the project at its inspiration? So basically or are you allowed fluctuation in that? Is there percentages built into the number? What's going on?
Well, I think there's always, room for some. But when you get to a point, if it's, 40, 50, 60% higher, that becomes a problem. So, we're trying to keep to what we have right now, and as we progress, keep an eye on the market and see what we can and can't do. Ultimately, if for whatever reason prices come down, we could do more. If they go up, it might be less, but what we're seeing right now today, that's why I wanted to bring it up, is that, our limits look like we're going to be closer to Golden than we are Lemon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I think you as an engineer and me being involved in the construction and those that are here in the construction, we very rarely see construction costs go down. Very rarely. Almost non-existent. And I'd like, so Nick, thanks for answering a couple questions. I have a couple comments. 15% of the state population resides right here in Washoe County, between the city of Sparks and city of Reno, and then Incline Village, Gerlach, you name it. That's 15% of the state. That's just based on the current census. That should be redone here in next year. I have a feeling, I want to know, and one thing I'd like to ask for you, Director Swallow, is make sure that 15% of that funding from the NDOT, at least 15% of that funding is still coming back to the north. And I'd like to make sure, and if it is coming back to the north, when those funding discussions are made, are we being consulted, or are they just being decided upon by NDOT because it's state roads? That's where those kind of conversations I'd like to have, because it seems like you've heard consistently across this board and through the general public today. And I think, like Commissioner Weber said, it's not targeted at any one person. I think it's just a general frustration that we want to see these improvements. We've all come together as community at NAB meetings, at CAB meetings, at community meetings to talk about when are improvements going to happen to I-580 in the North Valleys? When are improvements going to happen to the Spaghetti Bowl? Realistically, widening of I-80 out in Sparks has kind of gone to the back burner. People really don't talk about it as much because they're more concerned about the Spaghetti Bowl. People don't talk about how bad things are on Mount Rose Highway and out through Washoe Valley because things are important in downtown Reno, and everybody realizes that because this is where people work, this is where their kids go to school. And I want to keep talking about it. The point is that is 15% of the money coming back to Washoe County and being spent on highway roads here, and are we being consulted, the general public, RTC, Washoe County, City of Reno, City of Spark, about how those dollars are spent? And if we're not being consulted and they're kind of just being decided upon, well, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, I'd like to have that change of narrative maybe, and see how those things go. Because if that's the case, if it's a funding issue, let's talk about how we can work together because we're putting money into the Spaghetti Bowl, we're putting money into other projects. We have money to do those things. We have money to do those things, and we have a number of people out here that from the trades that have said, look, we'd rather you spend the money on those projects. So if it's a funding issue, I'd like to have that conversation because we can fix those problems. But if it's a decision problem and it's just a carte blanche, we're going to decide to do this project versus that project, that's what I want to know, where the difference lies. Director Swallow.
Again, thank you. Not exactly where I wanted to be 6 months in, but this is where we're at. And again, on this one, we are committed to the project. That is not a doubt. That is not a question in our mind. We are committed to delivering the project. The one thing I did want to mention in specific response to your comments are I am planning to come back next month with the splits.
Okay.
So our annual work program is approved annually by our board. I will be coming back with the splits in September, and we'll be having that conversation moving forward for the subsequent years, but also recognizing all of this is part of the One Nevada plan and how we implement and how we move forward with that. And I hate to say that it's still coming, it's still yet to come to be fully figured out, but you have my commitment to be working with you the whole way and to be having those conversations about how the money does get divvied up between preservation, between new construction and around the state, and really identifying where those needs are and how we can best fund them.
Great. And I think that's important to have those conversations. And I understand. I mean, we have our preservation needs. We understand that there's thousands and thousands of miles of road within the state that need to be addressed by the NDOT that many people don't understand the needs that are out there. I mean, but as members of NACO, as a member of League of Cities, we have, from our sister communities, we understand. I travel to White Pine County, I try to, go to Esmeralda, and you travel across the state. There are needs, I get it, across the state. What I want to make sure, though, is that when projects are decided upon within a region, that the regional individuals have a voice, that they have ability to have a discussion about it, and that that people understand that the priority is set based upon what the community needs are, and not by, and no disrespect, by a board in Carson City. It has to be done within the community that it's dealt with in. That's all I ask. And if that's a Governor Sisolak issue, if I don't know where that is, but wherever it needs to be, I'd love to have that conversation. So, all right, any further questions? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, so tell me why, you're saying it's about a year. My bet is it's going to be more like 2 years. Let's build the North Valley's portion of this first. Just do it now. Just get her done. It's just a lane in each direction, man. Just get her done. And I asked the question on the Pyramid Highway with respect to widening the Pyramid Highway, and they said, well, we can only go to this point because we don't have the interchange done. And I said, well, then do the interchange first. Well, no, we don't do it that way. Well, now we're predicating this on the interchange, and I say, because the city of Reno and Washoe County, we all have projects that are predicated on widening that section of the road. And so if we could just get that portion done, I think that, at least it would show good faith in the community, Director, that we are, so this part got pushed back a little bit, but so what we've done is we've moved this forward, we've just flipped that funnel, and we're still moving forward on the entire project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Weber.
Well, I just wanted to say that that's a great idea. And if something like that could be done, because every meeting that we go to, we have calls, we have, who can we refer them to? to somebody else that's going to tell them, well, they thought it was bad enough that maybe construction would be starting on the North Valleys project in 2021, in the fall of 2021, which we just heard, I think it was at the end of June, maybe it was July. We heard that was the case, that we were moving forward on that. That was bad enough to hear it's still like 2 more years when you're still on the roads every day. But now to say that it's now 22, 23, maybe not, maybe it'll be 25, 26. When is enough enough? But I like this concept.
All right. Great. Seeing that I have no public comment on this issue, or Nick, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much today. Thanks for presenting the project. Hopefully we get some resolution from that too as well. All right. With all that being said, I think there's been enough anger and frustration today. So we're all good. We've all got it out. We're on to item 6.1. Mr. Director.
7.1.
6.1, sir. Do you want to talk about
I'm sorry, you're right, Virginia Street. So item 6.1 is to acknowledge receipt of the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit Extension Monthly Progress Report. Mr. Wilbrecht has a well-deserved day off with his wife and 2 children. So Brian Stewart, our Director of Engineering, will provide that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chairman. Brian Stewart, Director of Engineering for RTC. Yeah, exciting times for Virginia Street, the Rapid Bus Transit Project. We're about 2 months into the project. You guys need to, if you haven't, and I know you do, but come down every day. There's something new to see, either a new sidewalk, some new paving. It is going phenomenal, and we're really, really excited about the project as it continues that way. We're still working internally with respect to getting the Small Starts grant. It's being reviewed by FTA. And so we're hoping to get that soon. The Phase 2, which is where we're in right now, the main line Virginia Street is what you're seeing. A lot of work there from Plum to Mount Rose. They have paved the 2 bottom lifts and going to be working on the next paving here really soon. Side streets of St. Lawrence and Tahoe Street are getting to those points to be completed and paved out. I think we may have even accelerated that a little bit to be Monday, Tuesday type of paving. So that's great. And as I said, the FTA grant update, we're continuing to work. We got our approval letter from the Department of Labor with respect to it, and then we're expecting our award for the grant to be signed in September.
That's not an award. That's just for a correct to record, that's not an award. That's an execution of the grant.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. So here's just some photos of all the great construction activities that are going on. Curb and gutter, basically you get in your demo and get rid of the old stuff. You come back in, prepare those bases and that subgrade and build that up. Curb and gutter is usually done early on there, so it gives you a line and grades to build everything else to. And then you come in and get the roadbed prepared, and then the paving is the final product. There's some mainline Virginia Street photos there. You got some delivery of the AC and the paving machines and the work going on. Outreach activities continue on the project for the past month. We had a tour of the businesses for the Cheney Street businesses that happened during the July timeframe. All kinds of business supports are still going on. Weekly project updates are still going on. I wanted to give an update with respect to the trailer, the office trailer that was there, and it was asked about by Commissioner Jardine last month on, how that was going, and it was not used as anticipated, and so we're changing on September 6th. We're going to change that and not man that office, but the board and the information that people could go and passively look at was important. So people would come visit Midtown and they'd look at the board and say, oh, here's some great information. What's going on? What's being built? Oh, here's some contact information with the website and with the project manager I can call if I have more questions. And so we're rolling rolling back that and using the funds and the resources to be able to share that information that way, which has really, really been successful in lieu of having somebody manned an office out there that wasn't getting visited to the magnitude that we would like. And just brief and quick, but any questions I can answer, but it is so exciting to see Virginia Street transforming every day before our eyes right now.
All right. Let's see. We've got a host of questions for you. Okay. Vice Chair Jarrett.
Thank you very much. I did just want to give some kudos. When my email's not being lit up by complaints, it's a good day. I'm not getting phone calls every day. I'm not getting lots of email complaints. There seems to be, there's a lot of activity going on a lot of side roads. I know the southern part is tore up right now, but seems to be going relatively smoothly. I want to knock on wood. That can always change in a minute, but seems to be going great. Again, we just want to make sure that everybody visits the businesses and supports them, make that little extra effort. It's really not that hard. And I wanted to know what the status of the videos were.
Yeah, thanks to the team. The team is doing it is just every day, elbows in and working hard. SNC, Atkins, Jeff and Doug and the RTC, and Michael and his team. So it is just a huge effort, and that's what's making it go smooth.
Thank you, Brian. Michael Moreno, Public Affairs Manager. I knew you were going to ask me that question. We are still working on that production, and so I just had a conversation with Mr. Evans to see where we're at. And so, again, he's balancing our project with the many other projects he has. But what we did do is the video that we shared at last month's board meeting, we've created a 30-second spot, which is now airing on Coloway TV.
Oh, good.
And so we also pushed it out through our stakeholder update. It's on our social media. And it's a very dynamic, very engaging video, hearing from the businesses about how important, this project is and to continue to support Midtown businesses. That continues to be our message, consistently to support Midtown businesses. I do want to let you know that we are doing what's called the Midtown Minute on Lotus radio stations, and that is to let people know how to get into Midtown to access businesses, specifically in the construction zones where we are working in now. A new twist of what we're doing is we are now inviting business owners to deliver that traffic control messaging, and also, giving them an opportunity to identify themselves as, Michael Moreno, owner of X business. So that's something new that we started, so we're really excited to kick that off. I do want to mention that on September 13th, with the success that we've had with the St. Lawrence Avenue construction, we're working with the merchants on St. Lawrence Avenue to have what looks like a block party. So they are doing that event. We're supporting them in that event, and so you'll be hearing more information about that as we approach the September 13th date. Brian did acknowledge the team, but I want to just acknowledge them by name, because you have a great team that is out there every day talking to businesses, making a difference, keeping everybody informed about what's kind of going on. And, it's not one individual, but it's a host of individuals, starting with SNC, Dan LeBlanc and Emma Crossman. They're just there. They have commitment for this project, a commitment to the community. And so along with them, Kathleen Taylor from Taylor Made Solutions, McKenna Kiefer from Atkins, and our RTC team, Jeff Wilbrecht, Lauren Ball, and Nicole Coots. So, we're very responsive. We want to be very proactive, and we're trying new ways to get the word out, but most importantly, to support the businesses in the Midtown during construction.
Great. Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Moreno, I was actually supporting one of the businesses last night in Midtown. I was at Death and Taxes doing quality control checks. I'm here to report that the quality is as high as ever. The nightmare is Cheney. And Cheney is the business owners would love to see Cheney one way. But a couple of them even said to me, I've had a relationship with the young man at Midtown Diamond since he was born. Literally, I did his parents' wedding photography. I've known Eric for his whole entire life. Some of them would even like to see Cheney closed off and turned into a plaza. And I know that might change some things, but just a one-way, most of them said if they could just turn Cheney into a one-way, that would really make a huge difference for them. That's directly from the business owners. That's not my idea. I will tell you, Thursday night, it was hopping down there. It was hopping. They were busy. They were definitely paying their bills. So that's just a comment to us from them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You know, Mr. Moreno and Brian, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. You know, I wanted to point out, and Mr. Stewart, really quick, when will the roundabout start? What phase? Is that in phase 2 of the project?
The roundabout will start right after wintertime, spring, as far as the physical surface improvements, where you're doing the underground now for all that, but the actual improvements will start in spring. I think it's a April timeframe, if I'm not mistaken, Dan.
And that's at the, it's Mary Street, right?
That is correct, the Mary Street roundabout.
Yeah. it was a very neat meeting. I was down at, just happened to be at the McKinley Center when Mr. Walbrecht, when he was meeting with Reno staff, and they were working on the art project, or the sculpture that will be unveiled in that. And let me just tell you, it is amazing. It'll be a really cool piece, and that they're working on. So I'm excited for this project is really coming together. I know with the headaches and challenges, but I have to take my hat off to S&C and all the time and energy that you guys have put into it, and our staff. It really will transform an iconic street that has been known in this community for many, many decades, and it will bring things to a new level. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it. All right, seeing no further comment, we'll bring it back to the board. We're on to item 6.2, acknowledge receipt and bus stop improvement and connectivity program.
Chair, could we get a motion for the 6.1?
You need a chair for 6.1?
So moved to accept the report.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we're on to item 6.2, Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, item 6.2 is acknowledge receipt of the bus stop improvement and connectivity program progress report. Judy Tortelli, the project manager and an RTC engineer, will report on this most important project that we have right now. So, Judy.
Welcome, Judy.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Judy Tortelli, project manager for the RTC, and I'm here to provide you an update on the bus stop improvement and connectivity program. A couple of things that I want to touch on today is kind of let you know what we have done, what the issues we've come across are, and what our approach is moving forward. So on to project status. We have completed field review of over 100 of our initial bus stops. Of those 100 bus stops, 60% design has been completed for over 60 of those. So how did we get from the 100 down to 60? We looked at our list of 100 bus stops and kind of compared them with other RTC roadway projects that are anticipated in the next 3 years. We came across some bus stop locations where there was potential to private development, so we're going to be reaching out to cities to see if we can do bus stop improvements with part of those developments. 21 stops were on NDOT routes. Our anticipation is to try to get bus stops built as soon as possible, so we're going to be looking at bus stops on NDOT routes for later phases because of the permitting time. We are looking to accelerate 6 stops on Kitsky Lane with this first phase. And then there were about 22 additional stops that just need more design and coordination. So we've been really busy the last few months doing coordination. We've met with the City of Reno, City of Sparks, and Washoe County to discuss packaging improvements to minimize permitting requirements. All of these agencies have agreed to work with us and try to meet minimal review times so that the project can move forward quickly. The agencies have agreed to utilize City of Reno standard details for the whole project. We've also coordinated with NDOT, and our approach there is going to be to submit permits to NDOT by route. This will reduce review times, minimize paperwork, and hopefully be a more efficient approach to get the bus stops done on NDOT routes. We've had several internal design review meetings and provided feedback on moving stops, looking at the best connectivity, direction, plan layout, and discussed best stop locations based on previous property owner feedback. So our biggest issues identified have been right-of-way and schedule. It's kind of a recurring theme. The right-of-way need for this initial 100 bus stops is greater than we originally anticipated. Most of the stops are going to need some sort of right-of-way. Our approach to right-of-way is we're going to be obtaining permanent easements for our bus stop pads where they fall outside of right-of-way. We'll be obtaining temporary construction easements for room to do the bus stop pad improvements and for room to do work on driveways to lower driveway grades to make them ADA accessible. There is an increased time to obtain easement rights from property owners. The overall right-of-way process we're looking at is a 6 to 9 month process. There's also an increased cost to do survey and prepare easement documents. Some other issues we have worked through include plan development and specifications. It's been challenging to put together a set of plans. We've tried to minimize cost, put together a set of plans that agencies can review. We need to give agencies something that they can look at and review before we bid a project. This picture up here is one of our stops that kind of highlights the real issue, right? On the top, we have a picture up there of a stop out in Washoe County. It's on Lupin and 6th Street, where our bus stop is located on the backside of a ditch. There is not really access there. The bottom picture is kind of a mock-up of our design plans and what they look like. You can see that we're planning to put a bus stop pad in there and connect the sidewalk down to the intersection and put into a pedestrian ramp. So another issue with plan development has been constructability. You know, how do we package these improvements so that they're constructible? We've tried to tailor the specifications to provide a package that the contracting community can bid and develop limitations so testing and inspection can be covered during construction in a cost-effective manner. So our approach really is to build bus stop improvements. So this map here, and I believe you guys have a handout, just a printout, a hard copy printout of the same map with your packages. So on this map, what we have is the blue stars indicate kind of that first initial 100 bus stops that we looked at. The yellow dots indicate bus stops that do not have any right-of-way impact, and the orange dots include bus stops that do have right-of-way impacts. So our task order 1 bid package is at 100% design right now, and we're getting ready to submit 100% comments for agency review. That package includes all of the yellow and orange dots on this map. Our plan is to advertise this project in September so construction can begin in October. From there, we'll be moving on to task order 2 and task order 3, doing more design and working on getting more right-of-way. So with that, are there any questions?
Commissioner Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judy, great report. This is really wonderful. You forgot the bus stops out in Spanish Springs.
He's being facetious. He's not. That's his problem. He has a problem. It's not you. Trust me. Director, will you keep going?
Mr. Chairman, we'll take that up in the regional transportation plan update.
What?
You're getting in trouble this morning.
It's not the first day.
I know. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. For those who are just tuning in and saying, oh, it's wonderful that there's going to be all these bus stop improvements, what does that mean? If I'm going to the bus and there's just been a pole there, what is a bus stop improvement? We'll take one off of Robb Drive as an example. It says it's in the initial 100+ bus stops. What does that improvement mean to the rider?
The improvement means to the rider that the pad will be improved to to be ADA accessible, so at a minimum, it'll be a 5x8 pad. We're putting in bigger pads where we have more ridership. So we'll improve the pad so that the actual bus stop itself is accessible, and then we're going to maintain connectivity to the nearest intersection. So that maintain connectivity piece is there will be ADA compliant path to the nearest intersection. So there will be sidewalk to the nearest intersection that's ADA compliant.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean if there was no bench, they'll get a bench, or if there was no shelter, they'll get a shelter.
Right. This particular project that we're looking at right now is just going to be kind of the hard improvements, the concrete, the pad, the sidewalk, the pedestrian ramps. The plan is for a separate transit project to come through and put in the amenities.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Judy, my question is in regards to some of the stops and the lines that we might be discontinuing in the future with microtransit and some of the things that we're talking about off in Vista. We're not doing improvements out to those bus stops, are we?
We're not, and some of those, there were a few of those bus stop locations that came up in this first round, and we kind of made a note to put them on hold and not do any improvements until we see how the microtransit stuff.
And then what about, and obviously stops, there are some stops down in the South Valleys off of Damani Ranch and Double Diamond area and out throughout the business improvement where we're doing the South Valley studies. I know there are a number of stops out there that definitely need improvement. I only see looking at 2. Is this just the first round, or are we looking at,
This is really just the first round. I mean, we identified over 600 stops that do not have an ADA compliant pad. This is 100. So this is a 3-year program right now that we have, that we're just trying to get them done as we can. We're kind of looking at bus stops ranked by ridership.
Okay.
And that's kind of our approach.
Okay. And the only thing I would add is that as we continue to look at this stuff, instead of being reactive because of where ridership is high now, being more proactive as where we see, growth going through our studies and whatnot, making sure some of those, I understand that current stops need to be improved so that we have at least the minimum there, but we have to be more proactive about we're doing a lot of these studies as a planning organization. That's what we do. We plan ahead, but it seems like we plan ahead, but we're reactive in our construction. And so it doesn't exactly correlate. So I would like to see if there is some plans for the North Valleys and their considerable growth out there. We should be focusing some of that on in the North Valleys, and we need to continue to do that instead of waiting 5, 10, 15 years to come back and address issues that are going to be tomorrow. So those are my only comments. Any further comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you. Looking for a motion to accept the report. I have a motion by Vice Chair, second by Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We are on to item 7.1. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, item 7.1 is to set executive director goals for fiscal year 2020. I've provided in your backup a quick list, which I've just sitting here have added 2 more items to. I'll run through these very quickly. Number 1 would be to complete the affordable housing study and prepare for a joint development and/or master developer RFP to look at possible public-private partnerships. The affordable housing study, as we all know, is something we're excited about. Implementing it will be the next step, and that basically what this goal does is focus on that implementation. The next, related to the first, is to initiate property disposal procedures pursuant to AB 270. The great news was we got AB 270 passed, which allows us to dispose of our property for other public purposes. The hard part now is for us to get some rules in place to be able to implement that. Implementation of the shared work program with the TMRPA. Something that's obvious after today's discussion, Spaghetti Bowl funding plan. We clearly need to sit down with NDOT and get our arms around what the contingency funding needs may be. As they progress through design, we'll be able to specifically perhaps look at allocated and unallocated contingency. Initiating the 2050, I'm having trouble with that one, the 2050 RTP process. We are moving into that part of the cycle where the reauthorization of the federal transportation laws will begin. We'll need to work with the Nevada delegation, provide comments as well as offer our reauthorization proposals. Bus operation test for a double-deck bus. Someone on the commission has asked for that, and we're actually near having an agreement to do that in November. Virginia Street, continue the construction of that. Succession planning, continue that. We've got a good succession plan in place. I'll highlight Mark Maloney and Angela Reich. Federal priorities, again, working our priorities through the shared federal framework. I put 2 on here, continuing to work with the bid and the ridership increase I failed to mention, and I want to give a shout out to Alex Statinsky at the bid. The work of the ambassadors has contributed to an improvement in the environment around 4th Street Station, making 4th Street Station, in my mind, a much more pleasant experience, and we need to keep working with the bid. That's the key. 4th Street Station, the bid, making that area safe, secure, enjoyable. And then last, I want to throw in perhaps a marketing /service /pricing effort to increase ridership. We've been doing some things in the last year to look at pricing. We've sort of readjusted some fares. I'll just put it real simply. We've offered a lot of free rides, and I think that's helped push up ridership, and I think as an executive director goal, we need to keep that focus forward. I'm really hoping, I don't want to jinx anything, knock on wood. I think a lot of things are in place for August to help continue what we saw last month in ridership. So those are 12 goals I offer. Of course, I'm happy to include any other goals the commission would like to include, or drop any goals that are on here that the commission would like to exclude, or offer something completely different.
Commissioner Harton.
I'll acquiesce to Vice Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have a few. Double-decker vehicle, of course, very excited about that. I think that will really help ridership on Virginia Street with the student population and visitors as well. So I do think that's a worthwhile venture for you to put on your goals. On that line, I'm going to go ahead and stay kind of down in downtown here. An evaluation with all of our partners, whether it be NDOT, whoever it may be, university, to evaluate a pedestrian bridge that stretches Lake Street over I-80 to the university campus. And then
Lake Street, right?
That's Lake. Yeah, Lake. In addition, evaluating with our partners, again, NDOT and any others, university as well, including the Business Improvement District, for improvements to the aesthetics of the Virginia Street overpass. As we continue to have student populations increase in our downtown, that is an area that, even though we'll be doing some Virginia Street improvements above 80, going across 80 is still not pleasing, or I don't know. There's a number of not very good descriptive terms over I-80. Got the really ugly wire fencing. You've got Walgreens on the other side with some horrible planters that never have plants in them. Something more in the entryway to our university and our Virginia Street and our downtown. Something that would say, I don't know. I don't know what it would look like. It's something artistic that, welcome to downtown, Wolfpack Country, whatever it may be, to make it better, for lack of a better term. And then maybe, and I don't know if this is premature or not, but to maybe start thinking about, I'm going to take things are going to work out well with microtransit is, what is the comprehensive plan with the rollout, assuming it's successful? Okay. I didn't see that on here, and I know that it's got some time before we can evaluate whether or not it's been successful, but maybe it's, worthwhile to look at that it's going to be. Thank you.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And actually, so I'll roll that, the Vice Chair's final comment into this. I've said this on a number of occasions, Mr. Gibson, and that is, and I hesitate to use the term of revamping the transit system, but with respect to ridership, I think it's incumbent upon us to constantly look at ridership. It's almost like a corporation looking at sales, and how do you make sure that your sales are not just maintaining but always increasing? How do we get more people to ride? And I think that a piece of that is looking at where we have high ridership, where we have low ridership. Is there still the possibility that we can utilize microtransit and take up some of those gaps? Because I know when I go to my senior center in Sparks, the one over on Richards Way, there's no transportation. That bus route was eliminated for them. So is there a way that we can revisit that? But you've heard me say this on a number of occasions. Is there a possibility that we can flex some of those routes midday to accommodate, especially our senior population going to medical appointments and you know, just looking at utilizing the system in a slightly different manner. And what I'd also like to do is I'd almost like to see it on a monthly basis, but it's certainly at least on a quarterly basis, where we're looking at the needed improvements in the outlying areas. The chairman brought up the Mount Rose Highway. I brought up Lemon Valley Drive, and I've brought up Pyramid Highway. Vista is in desperate need of some improvements. So just keeping those things on the radar, understanding where we are in the time frame, and letting people know that we are talking about it, we are thinking about those sort of outlying areas. It was a wonderful addition to get the Southeast Connector done. Now all three agencies want to raise the speed limit of the Southeast Connector. We're finding that it's if you're doing the speed limit, you're impeding traffic because people are flying around you. So we've got to really look at again those roads that are taking us to the outlying, and I call them the outlying areas. They're not going to be outlying for very long. They're going to be centers of outlying towns. And those are my base comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Weber, would you have anything? No. All right. I have, in addition to what you have here, Director Gibson, is great. But what I'd really like to look, especially, I know you talk about implementation of shared work program with TMRPA. I'd like to revamp that one and completely revamp becoming that. I think that I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think RTC should be the regional MPO. I think we should take the primary lead on being the primary organization, and I think today was a perfect example of that. I think that transportation is the lifeblood. We have been the ones that have continuously provided master plan updates. We've never missed a step with that. We aren't still waiting for a continued master plan from regional that was promised to us almost 10 years ago, but that's neither here nor there. I think that we need to figure out going into legislature that how do we get that done, and that RTC in some form or fashion, not saying that we do away with TMRPA, but we find a different way to utilize TMRPA and make this body the more functional MPO within the region. The other thing I'd like to look at is we talk about shared federal framework, and Director Swallow, I'm happy that you're still here this morning, and I know you and I have had this conversation in your office. I'd like to see, from your standpoint, Mr. Gibson, you work with Director Swallow to develop a shared regional framework, a discussion monthly or quarterly where the region as a whole, Carson City, Story County, Washoe County, the city of Carson, how we are working regionally to utilize the pot of money, the funding that seems to be the crux of every issue we have, what projects NDOT is working on, what projects Story County are, what projects Washoe County is, and how we're working as a whole and as a region to address the growing concerns and needs within the area. We talk about getting on an airplane and flying back to DC to deal with issues. I'd like to see we be a more concerted effort and cohesively working here at home amongst the organizations that are here. So a true framework or a quarterly meeting about identifying programs, plans, and needs, I think would be a better thing from my standpoint and a better use of time. With that being said, I have no other additions to this.
With that, Mr. Chairman, what Denise and I will do is edit this document, include your comments, and I guess with a motion to approve, we'll be done. We'll start down that path.
Looking for a motion to approve the goals with the amended additions from this morning.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Harton, second by Vice Chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We are on to 7.2. Mr. Ferguson, do we have any legal issues that we need to discuss this morning?
I just asked that before September's meeting, if you would all plan on your calendars an attorney-client meeting prior to this meeting, maybe for 8:15.
Okay. We will do so. Denise, if you can make sure we all get that on the calendar, that we will set that for a legal briefing next meeting. All right. We are going to close list 7.2. We're on to our final public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would wishing to speak about public comment? No? Going once, twice? Sold. All right. We're closing public comment. We'll bring it back to the board. Ms. Jordan, do you want to talk about the dogs on the bus really quick under member items?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought that was some compelling testimony about the woman that said sometimes dogs come on that are aggressive towards her dog on a leash. I don't know what our policy is, and the Keolis gentleman left, so I don't know.
I believe our rules don't allow for unleashed. I don't even know if they allow for animals at all.
Well, on
Unless it's a service dog.
So Mark Maloney, Director of Public Transportation. Basically, we're governed by the ADA law. And what that states is for service animals, and this is what she's referring to as other people's service animals. We do not allow, except for if you have someone caged, like a cat or a small dog, you take them to a vet, but they have to physically be in a cage. So any other animal that's on board any of our transportation is a service animal. And under ADA law, the onus goes on to the customer who brings along that service animal. They have to stay in control. In control could mean a leash, but it might not be a leash because their disability or what that service animal does doesn't allow you to have a leash. So they have to be able to control it by voice and so on. And if it's out of control, that's when the driver gets involved and has to say that, you are not meeting the ADA law, you cannot control your animal.
Okay.
We'll have to do something. Access is easy because we know who that customer is. We can sit down and talk to them. Fixed route's a little harder because there's a conflict between the driver and there, and they might have to, have that person leave the vehicle, and then we have things to work on in the background after that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other further member items? Commissioner Weber.
Real quickly, I just wanted to share about an event that's coming up, and it's an inaugural event, and it's the City of Reno presents Ward 4's Takeoff Celebration, and biggest little parade and flyover on Saturday, September 7th from 1 to 5. It's at the Reno Stead Airport, and it's an event especially for an inaugural event that is for the community of Ward 4, basically, and the whole city. Thanking and happy about having the Reno Air Races in our ward. So it's an exciting event. Working with RTC, we'll have a bus that will go out to the air races even a little further than it has in the past. So thanks to RTC for doing that, as well as for this event. And we're really trying to promote bus service out in the North Valleys especially. Trying to get people on that bus and on the buses in general, as everyone knows. But this event is sponsored by the Reno Air Race Association as well. And the biggest little parade will be really a little parade, but it'll be at the airport. There'll be a show and shine of Hot August Nights cars, hopefully, and others, food trucks, vendors. So any of the agencies that would like to participate, it's free. And our Grand Marshal is the mayor.
Awesome. Very cool.
We've invited all of you to attend. That Saturday, September 7th, and you can go online at reno.gov to find out more about this event and how people can participate.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Weber, and thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Hartung, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the service animals, maybe what we need to do, because I know a lot of people, my wife works at one of the clubs, and people just bring in dogs and birds and call them a service animal. And so maybe we need to have a true definition of what a service animal is. And and I know federally that comes out, but they're having the same issues on airlines. So I think maybe, we can sort of follow in those footsteps and people just bring them in and say, hey, this is my service dog. It's my, my comfort dog, and it's not truly, comfort, animal. It's truly not a recognized service animal, like a seeing eye dog or other animals that are actually recognized. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you for all your comments this morning, and we appreciate everybody being in attendance today. Hope you have a wonderful, very hot August day, and enjoy yourself. Stay in the air conditioning. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.